Hello, what's up?
Hello, everybody. This week, we are on page 567 of Kabbalah for the Student, starting with item 5, doing a review of it from last week.
Yeah, okay. We don't have a PC today, so I'll be using the cell phone to see your questions on the chat. So I'm not playing, okay?
Right.
Okay. So if you see me with a mobile, so I'm not. Okay.
Also, we have some excerpts from you that Eran will be reading straight from the phone.
Yeah, that's like the peak of technology. Okay.
Let's see. So let's see, page 476. Just 1 second. Let's get organized here.
Okay, just to do a recap, we're in Preface of the Wisdom of Kabbalah. So if we're talking about the model of the 3 lines we talked about last time, so we have how reality was created from what we call above downwards, meaning from the moment of creation to what we call our world, which is the lowest point of perception. Then we have evolution in our world in this state of the lowest mode of perception, which is an imaginary state, as Kabbalists talk about it. And then we have the moment in which the point in the heart awakens, then our presence starts to elevate, to ascend from our world back to the root. So usually in Kabbalah, we're talking about the main 2 axes, which is from above downwards, from below upwards. We're not talking mostly about our world. And in this article, which is the Preface of the Wisdom of Kabbalah, we mostly concentrate on the above downwards process, how the system was created. It's not something that was before, because there is no concept of time. It exists also now. That's why when Kabbalists attain spirituality, they attain the system as it is. It's just a higher layer of perception, because in the end, and maybe we'll talk about it later, all reality is like a pyramid of layers. That's how how reality is built.
That's right. We'll cover that in item 11 today.
Okay, so we'll cover that if we get there. Also, Rav Lightman gave it as an example before the American Congress, so he called it like a Big Mac.
Big Mac.
Yeah, and like a Big Mac example. So reality is like a Big Mac with many layers.
Many delicious layers.
Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you. All right, so I guess we can do the. So all right, so last week we read feels like yesterday, item 5, and also feels like a very long time ago. So item 5 begins with hence the 4 discernments in the name of Haya, which is kind of in the middle of things. So we have to go back to item 4 for a minute. And I'll just read the first paragraph of item 4, and then we'll continue with item 5.
Okay.
So item 4 on page 567 starts with the reason the will to receive is cascade by the 4 above-mentioned discernments in Abiyah is that there's a great rule concerning the kilim, that the expansion of the light and its departure make the kli fit for its task. This means that as long as the kli has not been separated from its light, it's included in the light and is annulled within it, like a candle in a torch. So this is the main process that we're talking about now, is separating the kli, the vessel, entirely from the light. And now we're going to go over the 4 phases of the direct light, or its 4 aspects that serve to kind of separate the initial kli that was created, that we'll talk about in a lot of detail.
Yeah, this is then we'll probably you'll see that then we'll get into details, and we'll linger a lot on this item because it's very important to understand for the rest of the article. So again, we don't study in order to understand. We study also in order to emerge somehow in the scripts and let the light work on us, just like we've talked about many times in this course. And yet this item is important, not that if you don't understand it, you won't understand the rest. You can also not understand the rest even if you understand it, and and vice versa. but still it contains a lot of terms and concepts that are very basic, fundamental in the wisdom, and you'll see that. So it's worthwhile to pay attention to what Dan is saying and ask questions. So no problem, ask as many questions as you want. We have all the time in the world. Just so we'll truly observe this item.
In general, just a word about the four phases, or the Arba Pchinot, the four Pchinot of the direct light, is that this process kind of repeats the whole structure, kind of the whole structure of the spiritual worlds is it's all based on the same kind of template. It's like a recursive, if you will. So everything, that's why we can study this kind of in depth over and over and over, and it never kind of bottoms out. You never get to the bottom, because the same super simple structure just manifests in completely different ways all over, kind of all over the whole topic that we're studying.
Yeah, and it's very cool. Like what's so genius about it, that the principles are found everywhere in nature. So, for example, I had just not related to the course, but it's worth mentioning. Day before yesterday, we had in Hebrew, not in English, we had a podcast with a professor of quantum chemistry. So he's working with the atoms, and he's working with how atoms connect, because they're trying to develop all these new materials that are not found in nature naturally. And so he was writing about how atoms connect one to another. So basically, you have these electrons that needs to connect in a common area between them, and then if you look deeper into the resolution, you'll see that what connects them in the end are photons of light. So he says that for him, when he read about Kabbalah, it was very similar to the fact that the light connects, that we said that the light connects. A day later, yesterday, I got an email from a friend of ours that is usually working with the scripts, Benzi. So he sent me a new article of Baal Sulam that he found from the writing of Baal Sulam, that Baal Sulam explains love through the connections between atoms. So this was really cool, that you see how the same principle, and you see how the same, I think what is most amazing is the same approach that Baal Sulam says, like people used to look on things like love or things like that, like something spiritual or something metaphysic, and in the end it's all about matter. And he also says how science came to understanding that it's all about atoms and electricity and all kinds of chemical processes. So what I want to say is that the most important thing, beside what Dan said about the recursive process that happens, is also the approach that we want to understand that everything comes from matter. So it's a bit weird that Kabbalists are like talking about spirituality, but they're most materialistic people that you'll ever meet. But materialistic in a form that the matter itself is the will to receive. That the matter for itself is the light that you receive, that you perceive on the will to receive. This is very important, because it's a very scientific kind of approach to reality. So it takes down a lot of like all this philosophy, all this metaphysics kind of stuff. Really down to earth kind of approach.
Yes. So we'll try to stick to that this lesson. Let's read item 5.
Okay. Okay.
Page 567.
Item 5. Okay. Hence, the 4 discernments in the name Havaya, called Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, and Malchut, are required. Bchina Aleph, phase 1, called Chokhmah, is indeed the whole of the emanated being, light and clear. In it is the great will to receive, with all the light included in it, called Or Chokhmah, light of wisdom, or Or Chaya, light of Chaya. As it is all the Chaim, life, in the emanated being, dressed in its kli. However, this Bchina Aleph is considered all light, and the kli in it is barely noticeable, as it mingled with the light and anode in it as a candle in a torch. To read it all?
No.
Okay.
We'll just do paragraph by paragraph. Okay, so we're talking about Bchina Aleph. Bchina, in general, I want to talk about the word Bchina. Move this guy downwards a little bit. The word Bchina in English, there's an e in it, but really I'll write it kind of Bchi. Whoops. Bchina. So this word Bchina is leavchin. The infinitive form is to discern. So it's like a discernment or an aspect of something. That means that if you have two different bchinot, then what separates them is essentially a subjective discernment between them. You look at something and then you look at something else, and if you can see a difference between them, they're two kind of different discernments is what we're talking about. So the first discernment, the first Bchina Aleph, is called Chokhmah. And this is the first thing that the creature, or the Kabbalist attaining this process from below upwards, attains as the first discernment that comes out of the thought of creation. And that's actually helpful to add, is above this Bchina, we have what's called Keter. Kind of the emanated thought of creation. Keter is the thought. And the thought of creation is to delight the created being. So the first thing that it does is create a created being. And in Chokhmah, this is the filled. Should I do like a, okay.
You should do an up to down, like a downward arrow.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, because he didn't talk about that yet. But this is what's interesting about this phase is that the light. This pen worked really well. Now it stopped again. Precedes the kli, the vessel. So this is a vessel that's filled. This is a vessel that's filled with the light, and the light is called Chokhmah. That's pretty much all we know here. The light of life, being dressed in its kli entirely. This Bchina Aleph is considered all light, and the kli in it is barely noticeable, as it is mingled with the light and annulled in it like a candle within a torch. Meaning that that in this phase, it doesn't feel its own desire at all. It's just like an infant in a womb, or even like a newborn baby in its mother's arms, just perfectly content, perfectly full, with no aspect of deficiency. There's no, or chisaron, as we'll know in the future. There's no kind of need for anything. It doesn't lack anything.
Following it,
Yes,
comes Bchina Bet, phase 2. Since at its end, the kli of Chokhmah, the kli of Chokhmah prevails in equivalence of form with the upper light in it. This means that a desire to bestow upon the emanator appears in it, according to the nature of the light within it, entirely to bestow. Then, using this desire, which has awakened in it, a new light extends to it from the emanator, called Or Chasadim, light of mercy. As a result, it becomes almost entirely separated from the Or Chokhmah that the emanator imprinted in it, since Or Chokhmah can only be received in its own kli, a desire to receive that has grown to its fullest measure. Thus, the light and kli in Bchina Bet are utterly different from those in Bchina Aleph, since the kli in it is the desire to bestow. The light within it is considered Or Chasadim, a light that stems from the dvekut, adhesion, of the emanated in the emanator, as the desire to bestow induces its equivalence of form with the emanator, And in spirituality, equivalence of form is dvekut.
So equivalence of form is the key here. As we'll kind of cover this in the allegory that's coming up.
Yeah, that's only in 15
Item
or something.
50, yep, good call. Yeah, exactly. It's in item 15. I'm not sure we'll get to it today. But dvekut is adhesion with the creator. All of a sudden, this desire, whatever it is, coming out of nowhere, which is initially just filled with the pleasure that the creator kind of bestows on it. Now, don't pay attention to these colors, by the way. They're not to scale. As you can see, there's nothing like specific about yellow or green or anything. They're just to kind of separate between the two. There's no additional meaning. And so the light of chasadim is the light or the pleasure, the sensation that this desire feels within itself in being similar to the creator, in its similarity to the creator. It gets this because now all of a sudden it wants to bestow. And its desire to bestow is the thing that makes it feel like it's similar to the creator, and it fills it with a sensation called the light of chasadim.
Yeah, and the most important thing here, as it will be true also for the rest of this explanation of the process from above downwards, is to always ask yourself, why doesn't the process stops here? Okay, if it's a natural process, actually we don't want to waste any energy. So as long as we're wasting energy and there is some kind of change, it means that we haven't reached a balance or equilibrium. So we haven't reached the equilibrium form state. So, and what is this equilibrium state? It is if the thought of creation, meaning the root, what Dan referred to as keter, is the will to bestow and feel the creature, what we call good and benevolent or whatever, and then it means that until the creature hasn't reached that state, the process doesn't stop. So you can ask, why doesn't the creature reach that state in Bchina Aleph? Okay, because a matter was created, and this matter was filled with the upper light. So what's the problem? That's it. So it's not it. Why not? Because as Baal Sulam writes here, in the light itself, as we've talked about last time, the creature senses the quality or the feeling of the giver, of bestowing. And that's why it wants to be like it. This is very important, because it shows that we, from the initial state, although we talk about a will to receive that we imagine as a will to receive pleasure, so we think of it as like a cup, that if you fill it with water, that's it, that's what the cup wants. So that's not correct, because the fulfillment of the desire is always connected to the sensation of the creator, of the emanator. This is very important, because it shows that we are programmed from the beginning to achieve adhesion, dvekut, and if not, doesn't matter what fulfillment we'll get, even endless fulfillment, we won't come to a state of balance. And this is a very important point.
Okay, Bchina Gimel.
Next follows Bchina Gimel, phase 3. Once the light had diminished in the emanated being into Or Chasadim without any Chokhmah, while it is known that Or Chokhmah is the essence of the emanated being, hence, at the end of Bchina Bet, it awakened and drew within it a measure of Or Chokhmah, to shine within its Or Chasadim. This awakening re-extended a certain measure of the will to receive, which forms a new kli called Bchina Gimel or Tiferet. And the light in it is called light of Chasadim in illumination of Chokhmah. Since the majority of the light is Or Chasadim, and its lesser part is Or Chokhmah.
All right, so this one So I'm going to draw the, so we have, it's mostly Or Chasadim, just like in the previous state. Because the previous state, remember, this is all one desire. This is all kind of one, it's the same sort of creature, the same entity that's going through this evolution that we're discerning. And as it's doing this, it's evolving closer and closer to the goal that the creator set out for it. And notice that Chokhmah is the goal of creation. Chokhmah is like the great pleasure, the abundance that the creator wanted to bestow. So for that reason, the creator initially just, that's the first thing he did is try to reach the goal. Not try, but like he, obviously he knew that this whole process would evolve as it does. But the first thing that we recognize that he does is create the desire and fill it immediately. Like that's the goal. This is the idea is to come kind of back to this state, but in a full way, like Aran mentioned earlier. So what we have here is now the creature starting to refill itself a little bit, to start to get back now with the new knowledge that it gained here, the new discernment that it gained out of this sensation of dvikut with the creator, to start to work its way back to the goal of creation, which is to fill itself again with chokhmah. So what we have here is inside of the light of Chassidim, we have what's called the illumination. Illumination of Chokhmah. Okay, I think we can round it out.
Yeah, okay, so this is very important because, again, ask yourself, why doesn't the process stops in Bchina Bet? It doesn't stop in Bchina Bet. This should be very clear to you. Like, this is very simple. It's not complicated at all. It's like, I explain it sometimes. I talk about it with my kids. Even 7-year-old, 8-year-old can understand the concept because it's like we're now talking in a very shallow way of cause and effect, okay? So you can ask yourself, why doesn't the process stop at Bchina Bet? It doesn't stop in Bchina Bet because the matter itself needs fuel. It needs life. It needs something to hold it. It's not a source of pleasure like the emanator. It's not like a power station of its own, or if you want a perpetuum mobile. So it doesn't have infinite fuel. So it wants to continue to bestow, but in order to keep that, it needs some kind of fuel, of motivation, of energy, and that's why in Bchina Gimel, in the third Bchina, it wants to receive a bit this energy in order to be able to continue to bestow. Okay, again, this, and we mentioned it last time, this is the beginning of one of the most complex phenomena even in our world, that we are built of two layers. We are built of a layer that is programmed for pleasure, because without pleasure we have nothing, and we are programmed to attaining the source of pleasure, or a higher layer in reality. This causes a lot of problems. If you know of certain aspects, like if you know Emil Durkheim, that talks about homo duplex, about a person is built of two levels, the animal instinctive level and the social level. If we talk about Freud with the id and superego and all kinds of stuff like that, or if you talk about in evolution, if you talk about certain paradoxes like an egoistic evolution compared to group evolution, and how do you explain phenomena like altruism or group actions. So many of, or if you talk about consciousness, so that does a individual consciousness exist at all, or are we all just part of one wave, just like we know from modern physics? So all of these things come from here. They come from the fact that also there is many philosophers talked about it, that a person needs to rise above his natural instincts, blah, blah, blah. So they're talking about what they understand from our world. But again, this is a very deep concept that talks about it, that it's also already from the root of creation, that we are built from these two different layers. Why do we emphasize it so much? Because we need to understand that in our work, in our personal spiritual work, later on we'll come to see that these two things are completely two separated realities, two separated layers of reality. We don't talk so much about practical work here because we don't want usually to confuse new students, and because here when we talk about the 4 phases of direct light, it's a or a lot before something even similar to a soul or a creature as we know it, or a person it comes to be. But still it's worth mentioning that we'll see it later on in our work. This is very confusing to beginners, because when we talk, for example, about bestowing in a group, loving...
Let's get into that when we're a little bit further.
Yeah, but I just want to close it because it's important for here to give some more flavors to the 47s, that if we talk about loving one another as yourself or bestowing, we usually imagine in the beginning that me as an individual is doing that toward other individuals. And that's completely wrong, because these are two different layers. To come into a state of bestow, of love, it's actually leaving the individual state and passing to another state, which is called the group or something more integral or something like that. Okay, so just to give you some flavors, that these are two different things, the light of Chasadim and the light of Chokhmah, and it's important to pay attention to that here.
So to come back to this, what's happening here is that the creature is kind of at this point trying to it's seeing that Chasadim, like Eran said, this isn't it can't stop here because this isn't the goal. The goal, it feels a huge lack of the Chokhmah, and it feels how much the Creator is missing, giving it this abundance that the Creator intended for it. So then it starts to come back closer to that goal. In bestowing, it realizes, in trying to bestow, being that this is entirely like this green here, in this case is entirely this desire, this lack of wanting to bestow, to give back, then it realizes that the only way that it can is to start taking in a little bit of the Chokhmah. And we'll see this process continue on basically throughout its entire development. So let's do Pchina Dalet.
Following it came Pchina Dalet, phase 4. Since the Kli of Pchina Gimel 2 awakened at its end to draw the complete Or Chokhmah, as it occurred in Pchina Aleph, thus this awakening is considered craving in the measure of the will to receive in Pchina Aleph, and exceeding it, since now it has already been separated from that light. As the light of Chokhmah is no longer clothed in it, but craves it, thus the form of the will to receive has been fully determined, since the Kli is determined following the expansion of the light, and its departure from there. Later, when it returns, it will receive the light once more. It turns out that the Kli precedes the light, and this is why this Pchina Dalet is considered the completion of the Kli, and it is called Malchut.
So what's interesting here is that, so on the face of it, it kind of looks like, and this is extremely, this is the most common question, is what is the difference between Pchina Aleph, where it's full of Chokhmah, and Pchina Dalet, where it's full of Chokhmah? Because it looks like the same. And here, the difference is that the Kli in Pchina Dalet precedes the light. So it's basically like the first time, let's say it's the first time you tried something. Let's use ice cream as an example. The first time you tried ice cream, you're like, oh, wow, okay, this is pretty good. Versus when you're super in the mood for it, and all of a sudden, then you get it. Like it satisfies that craving. So it's a completely different experience from the very first time you feel something to the next time when you really, really want it. And that craving is kind of the whole, that craving and its consequences and building it, the effect that it has on magnifying the desire is one of the kind of the reasons behind this whole development thing. Because you have to have the desire, you have to have the kli, you have to empty the kli of that pleasure, and then you have to have the kli slowly bring itself back to craving that one thing that the creator wants for it. Because the creator, the creator's goal, again, the thought of creation is to bestow abundance, to bring contentment to the creatures, delight to, or in the creator's terms, kind of infinite pleasure to the creatures. So the creator is not really concerned with all the hang-ups and all sorts of complexes that the creature can have. The creator doesn't care about any of that. His job is to magnify the desire, to make it as big as possible, infinite, in Kabbalistic sense, and then to fill it. That's what he's going to do. That's the process of creation. So here we have, again, filled with the light of Chokhmah. But later, we'll notice that this kli, actually, Pchina Dalet, what's special about it is that it's not just Chokhmah, but it's actually Chokhmah inside already Chasadim. So we'll see that Chokhmah can no longer be kind of accepted or received by itself after what we'll see is the first restriction, but only when it's wrapped in the light of Chasadim, in the desire to bestow.
Yeah, we also talked about last time about this principle of that when the light expands and departs, it creates a vessel, and this is what happens here in consideration to the light of Chokhmah. What is worth mentioning as well is that although we say in a simplistic way that Pchina Dalet wants to receive the upper light, but actually after tasting what it is to be like the emanator in the sense of bestowing, we actually say that it's craving both forms of pleasure, meaning both the pleasure that was in Pchina Aleph and also the pleasure of being like the emanator. Paul, I hope I pronounce his name correctly, is asking an interesting question about it, which is also, yeah, there is something into it. I don't know, you want to take the question now or later?
Yeah,
okay.
So now.
Okay, so Paul is asking, since in Pchina Gimel the creature is trying to reach a steady state by alternating levels of bestow versus reception, is this why it is represented by multiple sphirot?
Actually, yeah, that's not too far off. What we'll discover about Pchina Gimel, what's really special about it is that it's actually kind of an adapter between what the qualities that are up here, kind of the quality of the creator and the creature itself. So the creature or the created being is, we can say that is responsible for building this whole mechanism, and in connecting Binah to Malchut, which is kind of the goal in the end, the creature has to build a lot of kind of complicated, this giant infrastructure. You can't just go from purely wanting to bestow to all of a sudden having this completed kli. These are radically different things, and that's what we're going to study this entire semester, and every semester is the structure that links these two guys together.
I guess that Paul is referring to the fact that I guess it's not the first time you study this material according to this question, but he's referring to the fact that Pchina Gimel is divided to 6 sphirot.
That's right, in item 3.
Yeah, that's why we mentioned before that there are 10 sfirot, because Pchina Gimel is divided into 6 sfirot. I'm not going to be very accurate here, but I'm going to say something that it's close to the truth, but not too much. Again, we don't want too much to להעניש באלף, like to
Punish?
לא, להעניש,
Like,
how do you
burden?
what?
Burden?
No. How do you say when you give still things qualities of a person, that you say that the table is the computer is making me angry?
No, wait, hold on.
That you say that the computer is making me angry.
Yeah.
The wall hit me.
It's
personification or something like that?
No. That you refer to something as a human being, like.
Anthropomorphic is kind of the idea, but
That would be
it's like when something looks.
I don't know. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying. In Hebrew, you say la'anish, which is like to make something like humanize. A person. Yeah, like humanize something, okay? Yeah. Like little kids do it all the time. They project themselves on something. So it wasn't me, it was the glass, it fell, it wasn't me, the wall hit me. I hate this pen, it made me problems. So like humanizing it, okay? So maybe we have a suggestion, clothes, I don't know. Anyway, so we don't want to do that too much here in this process, because we want to understand this process in terms of forces, because usually we have this natural, again, childlike attitude towards the world, that we do this humanization towards the creator all the time. So we're going like, the creator is mad at me, the creator punished me, now I'm angry at him, maybe we can manage, I'll do something for the creator, he'll be nice to me. And big portion of studying Kabbalah for the first years is just to format the person to relate to the creator as a law of nature, just like in physics, just like we talked in the beginning. It's very complicated, because we are a sensing being, to relate to the creator. On one hand, it's the source of pleasure, of information, of everything. And when we sense something of it, we're going like, woo, yeah, and then still relating it as a physical process, just like we know from science that in the end, what we sense is love. And these Hollywood movies of flowers, and I'm going up in the air. It's all about chemicals, or electrical stimulation. So we can actually give somebody some kind of substance, and he's going like, woo, you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen. You're so great. Okay, so it's very hard to do this growing up. So that's why we usually don't talk in 4 phases of direct light in the way I'm going to talk now, but I think it's important for this understanding of phase 3. So if you can look on the drawing, Anna, אפשר לראות את הציור? If you can look on the drawing, I've asked for the drawing. Let's see if it comes. No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah. Okay. So actually what you can say that happens in Pchina Gimel, and why it is divided to 6 sfirot, think of it as reverse engineering, okay? So everyone who ever did something mechanical or played a video game know that the whole point of a game is doing reverse engineering. You need to understand how reality works. That's how kids learn best, yeah? They just go doing A/B testing. They're trying this, trying that, see how everything reacts, and then according to how it reacts, they understand the laws, the logic, and what they should do, okay? So you see kids, video games is the best example, because you see him killing the monster for 20 times until he understands how to do that, and then he's like, poo, 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 next level, okay? So you can say that in level 3, something very similar happens, because what happened is that in Pchina Aleph, the creature was filled with light. Still, something was missing. And then in Pchina Bet, it tried to completely bestow. Still, it was missing energy. And then in Pchina Gimel, it's divided to 6 phases in which he tries to do like a reverse engineering of what the creator wanted of him. We'll talk about it later on, how these sefirot are built. So he's doing like a small model of the whole process, and in the end, what he understands that the creature wants of him is to receive. He was programmed to receive, yeah, just like this Hotel California. He was created in order to receive the endless abundance in reality. And that's why we have Pchina Dalet, okay? Just what is exactly this abundance? Is it to be like the creator, or to be filled of pleasure, or both of them together? This to be continued or understood later on along the line.
One quick thing I wanted to note about this part of the drawing here is that the illumination of Chokhmah. I couldn't really find a better way to depict this, but the Chokhmah here, it's not like one part of the Kli is Chokhmah and the rest is Chasadim. The illumination of Chokhmah is kind of distributed throughout the Kli. This kind of just represents that it's a small part, but if you kind of zoom into any little part over here, you would also have the illumination of Chokhmah. So you shouldn't think of it like a concept like there's this discrete part of Chokhmah that's over here and the rest of it is Chasadim. It's a sensation that goes throughout the Kli. Let's do number 6, and then we'll take some more questions.
Okay.
Because number 6 is a nice table.
Okay. So number 6. These 4 above discernments are the 10 sefirot, discerned in each emanation and each creature, in the whole, which are the 4 worlds, and even in the smallest part in reality. Pchina Aleph, this is very important principle. Pchina Aleph is called Chokhmah, or the world of Atzilut. Pchina Bet is called Bina, or the world of Bria. Pchina Gimel is called Tiferet, or the world of Yetzirah. And Pchina Dalet is called Malchut, or the world of Asiya.
Yes.
Good?
Okay.
To move forward? Or?
No. All right, so let's go over that. So we're going to learn some Hebrew now. We're just going to, just the letters actually. So this is the letter Aleph. We're going to get to know these guys. We'll use the block form, not the script form. For now, the name of this letter is Aleph. As in Pchina Aleph, and it represents the Pchina called Chokhmah. Pchina Aleph is generally Chokhmah, which corresponds to the world of Atzilut.
It's a cold word, corresponds. Yes, nice.
What is it in Hebrew? You think you have a good one in Hebrew?
You can say like relating to Mityaches or
Shayach.
Shayach. Yeah, it's not Shayach. It's more like part of the whole. It's not the same. So, but corresponds. It's like projecting it in a different way or something like that. That's how I sense it. But
all right,
maybe I'm wrong.
This is the letter Bet. It has its own name, the letter Bet, and it corresponds to the Pchina Bina. Pchina Bet is Bina. The world of Atzilut Bria.
We have a problem with the drawing. Wait, Dan. Don't work so hard. Maybe
Gimel? I'll keep going. Because
maybe
otherwise...
the computer is lost. Yeah, maybe we'll take a picture on the cell phone as long as we're in this technology now.
Yeah.
And we'll send it by WhatsApp or something. יש בעיה עם השרטוט?
So the thing is stuck for the moment.
Yeah, it's stuck.
But it's okay. When it recovers, then you'll see.
Yeah, if it was next to us, we would just hit it. Sometimes it works.
So the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet is called Gimel. It's like a G. And the Pchina that it corresponds to is Tiferet.
I have an idea. You know what?
Tiferet, and that world is Bria Yetzirah.
Maybe you can see it now in the.
I think is it rotated?
In the Zoom.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Good. And Dalit. The letter Dalit is the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And its Pchina is Malchut. That is the world of Asiya.
Okay.
Additionally, one extra bonus.
Damn, don't go
Pchina.
crazy. It doesn't work.
It's coming. It's coming. It's okay.
No, it's not.
Is Shoresh. So the root of all of these guys, which is kind of worth adding in, is Keter. Oops.
I would send a file, but I don't think it's possible.
So you think it's stuck? Do you think we'll get this back today?
I don't know. אנה, זה יסתדר או שזה הלך? Okay, so now we need a higher level of technical assistance. So if it will come, it will come. If not,
okay. So I'll just write these guys out, and then we'll.
I don't know how you can. Here he is. Oh, Dad is here. He's like the.
We escalated our tech support to the highest level.
It's the pyramid of layers. So I'm working in technical support here also.
Name is.
Oh,
look at that! Wow, wonderful. Okay.
See, it's when you rise to a higher layer, it's like a magic all the time. You know, you see it also in emergent phenomena in nature. So it's like magic. Okay. לא, צריך את השרטוט עכשיו. Thank you. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. So we have this kind of bonus. All right, so let's see. So what's going on here? So we have.
You have such a nice writing. You know, it's like
I take my time.
Ordinarily, you know, it's like you really want like a good student.
Really, I love tables. Look at this tables. 4 by 4.
It's really cool. Look how you did it straight.
So we have, all right, so the letter, so typically this is actually represented by the letter Shin. Do I want to do, okay, never mind. Let's skip that part. Okay, so what did we just go over? In item 6, these 4 discernments are the 10 sefirot, discerned in each emanation and in each creature in the whole, which are the 4 worlds, and even in the smallest part of reality. Pchina Aleph, this is the letter Aleph, this is its name. Pchina Aleph is called Chokhmah, or the world of Atzilut. Pchina Bet is called Bina, or the world of Bria. Pchina Gimel is called Tiferet, or the world of Yetzirah, and Pchina Dalet is called Malchut, or the world of Asiya, and this is the world that we're currently in. So we're kind of at the very bottom of the world of Asiya, in case you're wondering. Big picture, this is kind of where we are. And did we continue?
Yeah, we should continue. Just to add to that.
Wait, just one thing. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
So above that, so we have Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, and in the previous page, we saw that there's also Keter, the thought of creation, and Keter doesn't have a letter. Keter doesn't have a letter like Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet because there's no 0th letter of the Hebrew alphabet because it wasn't invented by a computer scientist. So for that reason, it's just called Shoresh. And the word Shoresh in Hebrew is root.
That was a joke that only certain % of the audience understood.
The computer science thing?
Yeah.
In computer science, today is the 0th day of the rest of your life. That's kind of how they count. They all come from 0. So Pchina, all right, so that Pchina is called Keter, or kind of literally crown. And that world is Adam Kadmon. This is the first world that we're going to study when we start getting into the structure of the worlds themselves.
Yeah. Okay. So if we had like complex animation in this course, what we would like to show right now is that צריך לראות אותי. אנה, כדאי לראות אותי. Okay, I'm asking. Okay, now you can see me. So If we had complex animation in this course, what was important to show now, we would show you a structure just like a DNA, let's say 10 sphirot, and think of it that it all depends on the level of the zoom. So if you zoom out to a very, like he says here about the whole, you get a structure of the whole worlds. And if you zoom in, then every part in each of the world, every part of creation is being built according to the same structure. This is very important. This is like, you can call it a DNA, or I don't know how you want to call it, but this is what we talked about Havaya. Well, it's important to understand that it's the same structure. Why is it the same structure? Because in the end, there is no resolution. In the end, there is no reality. In the end, all there is light. And because we are building this structure, we perceive everything according to this structure. This is very important. Just like we perceive anything through our 5 senses. Again, 5 senses is corresponding to this structure. Okay, we need to understand that because we always forget that there is no reality because we are so used to, from birth, to project everything outside. So this structure is our inner structure, and because of that, we see everything in this prism. How do you say prisma in English?
Prism.
Prism. Okay, good. I was correct.
Through a prism.
Through a prism. Okay. Now, the other thing that is confusing is that, and you have all kinds of methods like that, okay, if there is no reality and everything is my perception, let me change my perception. So I'll think positive, then the reality will change, okay? Or I'll, I don't know what, I'll do some kind of concentration or meditation and everything will change. Doesn't work like that, okay?
Why? It does work.
In what way?
If you think positive, reality does change. It does become more positive for sure.
In a very psychological way, but you won't see the table differently, or you won't ascend to a higher level.
Not in a spiritual sense, but like it definitely changes your life thinking positively.
It's a question. It's a question, A, if you're possible of changing how you're programmed, and B, it's a question that if you're staying in the same layer of reality, is it a true change of life, or it's just the same Big Mac in a different way?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about moving between layers, you need to, if you're talking about moving in different layers, it means in Kabbalah, changing the way you are programmed, like upgrading your program, okay? But it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean that if you upgrade your program, the hardware changes. It's a very important thing. The hardware is always the same hardware, will to receive. But how this will to receive operates, it depends on your level of resolution. And this is deep stuff.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Okay, but this is like too deep. I would say that this is deep, but I can't say this. English speakers are much more sensitive to if I would teach in Hebrew, I would say something else, but this is not for now. Okay, in English speaking world, you need to be more gentle.
Like America and the UK, maybe. I don't know.
Need to talk nicely. Okay. Okay.
All right. So let's continue. So we're in the middle of item 6.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I, with this chart that you've got up on the screen right now, you say name is
the name of the letter.
Alpha. Aleph. And then the Bikna is Hakma. But isn't that the Bikma is Alpha? Like
yes, you're right. So we call Pticha Aleph.
But it's Bina Aleph, and then the name is Hakma. What I'm saying is your name and your Bina are reversed at the top.
No.
So this is the, okay, I see what you're saying, I think. So this is
Yeah.
the
We,
Hebrew letter, and then the name of that letter, just the name of that letter.
Yeah, and actually Aleph Bet Gimel is, you can replace it with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, because it's actually just talking about the sequel of the discernments. Okay, the number of the step.
yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the Bikana is, it's either the first one, the phase 1 is Bikana Alpha, phase 2 is Bikana Bet, right? Phase 3 is Bikana Gimel, and phase 4 is Bikana Delet.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is your name, you've named the letter, but
Yes, this is just the name of the letter itself, not the name
of the name of the Bina, Bikana.
Yes.
Right. But I mean, in item 6, he says, Pchina Aleph is called Chokhmah. Pchina Bet is called Bina. So it kind of like, you know.
Also, there is more confusion if you want, because Chokhmah is also the name of the light.
Okay, we don't have to. No, please.
Okay, but don't get too confused. Okay, just relate to it. You know, this is a cow; it does moo. This is a sheep; it does meh. Just understand that the cow and the sheep are two different things. That's it for now. Okay.
In almost every article that Baal Salam writes concerning this this topic, he begins and opens, and not just him, but like his predecessors as well. They begin and open with kind of almost this table of making these guys equivalent. The first, like Iran made a good point that Aleph is entirely interchangeable with the number 1. Bet is the number 2. So when you hear Aleph, like here, you know, in the US we have grade 1, grade 2, first grade, second grade, third grade. Here you have Kita Aleph, Kita Bet, Kita Gimel, meaning that Aleph, Bet, and Gimel are entirely in the mind, entirely interchangeable with their numbers, with 1, 2, and 3, with 1, 2, 3, and 4. But here we use it so often that I wanted to stress and kind of emphasize. So when you hear Aleph, Bet, and Gimel, and Dalet, then you get used to just kind of approaching or hearing them as 1, 2, 3, and 4. So kind of go over. But these guys are entirely equivalent. Pchina Aleph is called Chokhmah, and it's the world of Atzilut, and so on.
When you talk about the worlds, if you talk about different resolution, it will be something else. So don't be too fixed on it, okay? It's very important to be like internally flexible, because when we'll talk about Pchina Aleph in a different place, it will be called something else.
Another way that these Pchinot are represented in the 4 phases of the direct light is sometimes you'll see it like this. So this is the arrows are the direction of the reception or the bestowal. So here, Keter is the thought of creation, to bestow abundance to the creature. Chokhmah is the desire which receives all that abundance. It's just another way to depict it, a simpler way without colors. Bina is a desire to bestow back, so the arrow is pointing back up. And Gimel is reception for the sake of bestowal, which we kind of have over here in a different sense, the illumination of Chokhmah. And Malchut, Dalet, is receiving both kind of the abundance and the pleasure of adhesion with the Creator, the Dvekut. So it's receiving everything.
I think the confusion is just that you're using the term Behina for Keter, Hakma, Bina, where the text talks about Behina Aleph, Behina Bet. That the proper term may be better Sfirot in that chart. The Sfirot's name is Keter, Hakma, or I know it's all interchangeable, but I think that's where the confusion was stemming from some people.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah, okay.
This comes from this chart. I guess it just refers to kind of the scope of this chart can stick to item 6, where in the text it says Pchina Aleph is called Chokhmah, or the world of Atzilut. Pchina Bet is called Bina.
You can change it to Sfirot, no problem. Anyway, this is not the.
Let's erase this.
This is not the main point here. Okay, so don't be too fixed on that. The much more important thing is to start to get some flavors in how in each process, in each object, there are 2 different forces that work in it. okay? And these two different forces create a new state every time. And this process, which is very similar if you know about, if you ever studied of a dialectical process, okay? So you have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, okay? So this is very important. This is very similar to what you see in the first three stages, okay? And this is what happens to us everything in life, just like we talked about the creation of the vessel, that first we have pleasure, it departs, and then we have a craving for that, okay? Or we need to gain something to lose it in order to appreciate it, or I don't know how you want to call it, or we need to get some example of something, be completely confused, having the earth taking under our feet away, and then it comes back and it's ours because we understood it. So this process is very important because, or for example, you have this symbol in Judaism that you count the day from the night. So actually, not like in Christianity, for example, that the sun was the main thing there always, and the sun was the source of light at the beginning of everything. In Judaism, it's a bit different. So in Judaism, you start to count the day from the night. So when the evening starts, it's the new day, because you want to say that first come the darkness, then come the light, and both together are one day. So this principle is much more important to understand. Why is it most important to understand? It will be much harder to understand that in our sensation, that in order to advance spiritually, we need to understand something, completely lose it, and then gain it again, okay? Or we need to feel something, then completely not feel it, be completely confused out of order, I don't know, like lost, and then you come to a new degree. And this state of losing, of darkness, this is one of the hardest things to understand. Actually, in education, you have Pticha. I think what Pticha is the name of this French educationer that was very famous for his way of teaching, that he said that you actually should explain something to students, completely confuse them. They need to be lost, and then they need to build it on their own. And then it's truly death. So
that doesn't sound very hard.
Yeah. And in a capitalistic kind of egoistic way, we used to think that we need to always add more. So I need to add more. I need to know more. And every day I need to have more zeros in the bank account, more clothes, more something. I don't know, more. And in development, it doesn't work like that, because having more is just staying on the same level. If you want to rise, you need to have, lose, build something new. Build, lose. That's why also kids, you see them, they build something, then they completely ruin it, and then they build it all over again. And this is not simple to live by, but it's much
like
more fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's like life is a roller coaster. It's makes everything much more lively.
It's a standard learning process. Everything kind of works that way. Like we build this weak framework, and then we discover all the flaws in it, so it kind of collapses. But then when we rebuild it already knowing what we knew earlier, so we rebuild it better. And that's actually kind of what's happening here also. It's at the same time, is this kind of rebuilding happens. Let's finish item 6.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then we'll keep reading, and then we'll take questions at the end.
Let us explain. Yeah, from where we stopped, yes?
Let us explain, yes, please.
Let us explain the 4 discernments applied in each soul. When the soul exits from Ein Sof and comes into the world of Atzilut, it is Pchina Aleph of the soul. Yet, there it is still not discerned by that name, since the name Neshama, soul, implies that there is some difference between her and the emanator, and that through that difference she departed Ein Sof and has been revealed as its own authority. But as long as it does not have a form of a kli, there is nothing to distinguish it from his essence, to merit her own name. You already know that Pchina Aleph of the kli is not considered a kli at all, and is entirely annulled in the light. And this is the meaning of what is said about the word of Atzilut, that it is complete godliness, as in he, his life, and his self are one. Even the souls of all living creatures, while traversing the world of Atzilut, are still considered attached to his essence.
So not much to add here. He's kind of just specifying or noting that stuff that's, as the world of Atzilut basically is kind of still up there with the Creator. There's no detachment. Completely connected to the Creator, which means that there's no materialization, there's no Kli, there's no vessel that's separated from the light. The Kli and the light are one. And in fact, we see that later on, as we descend from the world of Atzilut, the goal becomes kind of to return to the world of Atzilut, but already having the Kli preceding the light.
Yeah, this is very hard. Again, you need to understand that in order to explain complete systems, integral system, a whole state, it's very hard, because when you want to explain something, you need to slice it. You need to take it apart to try to explain. And when it's something whole, when it's complete, it consists of everything. Everything is there, okay? So that's how it is in spirituality. So what Baal Sulam actually says here is like trying to add flavors. So what, and again, let's see the table that Dan drew. Anna, אפשר לראות את הטבלה? So what actually is like trying to add flavors here? What does he want to say? He wants to say about a soul. It's not our soul, okay? It's a question if we have a soul at all. Let's not talk about it right now in this state of the course, but he's talking about a concept that is called a soul. So he says that this soul is something independent from the Creator, okay? So he's saying that this soul also goes through a process of departing, of what he calls transcends, okay? So it goes from infinity, from Ensof, until our world, okay? So what does he want to say? He says that when it is in the world of Atzilut, you see like number one, okay? Bchina Aleph. When it is in the place of Atzilut, it really doesn't, it's not called a soul, because it doesn't stand on its own. Because Atzilut, when you're in the state of Atzilut, it means that you feel that you're part of the Creator, that the Creator is ruling all of your reality, that there is no you. There is only this infinite light that covers everything. Why is this an additional flavor? Because if you remember, what is Bchina Aleph in the four phases of direct light? Bchina Aleph is the vessel being created by the light, and it's like a spark compared to a torch. How do you
Candle.
like a candle compared to a torch, okay? So you need to taste it. You need to taste that what is a candle towards a torch. It's like being in a reality of Atzilut, that there is no me. There is only this huge flame that you could call the Creator, okay? So of course that we're imagining, and of course that this is not true, and of course that we are like 3 years old that play like they're adults. If you ever see this girl, which is 4-year-old, and she's moving the puppet and say, oh, mother is going to give you something, and she doesn't know what it means to be a mother, or what it is something, but she plays in that, okay? So we're playing in that, okay? So that's why he's saying that, okay? So it's really, don't go into the details of what is the soul here, and why is it different or not different from the emanator, etc., etc. Just try to get flavors from what he's doing now and further on in the next items about the different pchinot and how do they relate to this initial basic, like how do you say Hayuli? How would you say Hayuli? Like this fundamental, basic, strong structure DNA of the four phases of direct light. That everything can relate to it, okay? I don't know the word for that. It's like, maybe you have a word in English for that, like this very essential concept of this structure that everything relate to, okay?
Foundation.
Foundation, okay, yeah. Also, if you read Zohar, for example, later on, or if you read different scripts of Kabbalists, you'll see how they all talk about the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing that different, just different points of the same thing. Because again, if you want to talk about something whole, I don't know, think about love.
Listen, Aran, I'm gonna have to stop you. I'm sorry. We have to read through items all the way through 10. If we can, just to get through this table, and then we can do some commentary and take some questions because we're gonna run out of time.
Okay, we have a quantime, sorry. So?
Item 7.
7, okay. This above mentioned Pchina Bet rules in the word of Bria, the kli of the desire to bestow. Hence, when the soul cascades into the word of Bria and achieves the kli that exists there, it is considered a neshama soul. This means that it is already separated from his essence and merits its own name, neshama. Yet, this is a very pure and fine kli, as it is in equivalence of form with the emanator. For this reason, it is considered complete spirituality.
So we see that neshama, or still in the world of Bria or Pchina Bet, is still considered completely spiritual, which shouldn't come as a surprise since it's only full of the light of Chasadim, which is simply the desire to bestow to the Creator. So it's still considered part of the Creator. Let's do item 8. 8.
The above mentioned Pchina Gimel rules in the word of Yetzirah, containing a little bit of the form of the word to receive. Hence, when the soul cascades into the word of Yetzirah and achieves that kli, it exits the spirituality of the neshama, and it is then called ruach. This is because here its kli is already mingled with some of yut, meaning the little bit of will to receive within it. Yet it is still considered spiritual because this measure of aviyut is insufficient to completely separate it from his essence and merit the name body, which stands in its own right.
Yeah, exactly. So also not surprising because this is still mostly spiritual, but somehow it has this small desire already to be filled with some form of light. Although the desire is entirely encased in the desire to bestow. The desire to receive is within the desire to bestow back to the Creator. Item 9.
9. Pchina Dalet rules in the word of Asiya, which is the complete kli of the great will to receive. Hence, it obtains a completely separated and distinguished body, guf, from his essence, which stands in its own right. The light in it is called nefesh, indicating that the light is motionless and in of itself. You should know that there is not a single element in reality that is not comprised of the whole Abiyah.
And this brings us back to what we talked about all the way in the beginning of the lesson, that all of reality, and this concept just gets more and more profound as we go on in our studies, that all of reality is comprised of the whole Abiyah, which means these 4 phases. Every attainment that we have goes through these 4 phases. Every concept goes through these 4 phases. Item 10, please.
Item 10. Thus, you find that this nefesh, the light of life that is dressed in the guf, extends from its very essence, existence from existence. As it traverses the 4 worlds Abiyah, it becomes increasingly distant from the light of his face, until it comes into its designated kli, called guf. This is considered that the kli has completed its desirable form, and even if the light in it has so diminished that its origin becomes undetectable, through engagement in Torah and mitzvot in order to bestow contentment upon the Maker, one purifies one's kli, called guf, until it becomes worthy of receiving the great abundance in the full measure included in the thought of creation. When he created it, this is what Rabbi Hanania meant by the Creator wished to cleanse Israel. Hence, he is giving them plentiful Torah and mitzvot.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. Just to complete this chart, he didn't mention the lights in the upper worlds of Atzilut. He didn't call them by name, so we're just going to fill them in. So the light that's in the world of Atzilut is called Chaya, and the light in Adam Kadmon is called Yechida. Yechida. So those are the lights in the upper worlds. Now it's a question what Torah and Mitzvot. One thing that begs a question here is that we have at the end of the first paragraph in item 10, it says, this is considered that the Kli has completed its desirable form. So now the Kli, having reached the world of Asiyah, completely distanced from the Creator, and feeling the light of Nefesh, which is this tiny sort of like a pilot light almost, just to keep it alive, just to keep it going in order to enable it to eventually start climbing back up and attaining the upper worlds, also known as the full desire, the completed desire, the guf. This is the desirable form. However, in the next paragraph, he says that its origin has become undetectable, meaning that the creator that this desire descended from is now undetectable by this desire. Through engagement in Torah and Mitzvot to bestow contentment upon the Maker, one purifies one's Kli called guf. So although we have reached the level of a vessel where it's in its desirable form, it's still impure. And it has to be purified. And it's purified through what are called Torah and Mitzvot. Do you want to read the excerpt from the... So there's an article on page 476 called From the Mouth of a Sage. And there's just a short part that talks about Torah and Mitzvot, since he doesn't mention them kind of in this article specifically, but in one of his other articles he does.
Yeah, so the definition that Baal Slam gives there to Torah and Mitzvah are as follows. The Torah is simple light that expands from his essence, whose sublimity is endless. Again, the Torah is simple light that expands from his essence, whose sublimity is endless. The Mitzvah is a Kli, vessel, where the light is clothed, meaning a holy name that belongs specifically to that mitzvah. This is the meaning of the mitzvah is a candle and the Torah is light. Again, the mitzvah is a Kli, vessel, where the light is clothed, meaning a holy name that belongs specifically to that mitzvah. This is the meaning of the mitzvah is a candle and the Torah light.
So we can understand from this is that the mitzvah is like the kind of like the desire, this vessel, and filling it with the Torah. So in Hebrew, the light is the word or, and so we can hear it in the word Torah, right? It has already light in it, or instruction, and kind of illumination. So by adapting the vessel to be filled with this light, by changing its qualities in order to be filled with its light, that's the meaning of, on our level at least, in the most basic sense, Torah and Mitzvot. In English, it's the Torah and the commandments. So commandment, you can think of it as changing a desire, changing the form of a desire in order to be similar to the Creator, thereby filling it with light and correcting it, purifying it. So this process is what brings this guf that is formed all the way in the world of Asiyah back to fill the entire system.
Yeah, in another place, Baal Slam answers to what is Or, Torah, meaning Or, light. Everything in the olamot, in the worlds that exists as existence from existence, which is everything but the substance of the kelim, is called Or. Okay, so everything that existing from existence, beside the substance of the kelim, is called Or. And what is Or and Kli? Or and Kli, the will to receive in the creature is called Kli, and the abundance that he receives is called Or. Okay, or light.
Excellent. So that's our material for today. Let's take some questions. We have about 8 minutes left. Questions?
Is voice question okay?
Sure.
Can you hear me? Okay. It is said that we are a projection onto the light. How can you reconcile that concept with what you guys were just describing, that we are a projection onto the light? I know it's a crazy, hard question, but maybe. Thanks.
projection of the light meaning מה? כאילו שאנחנו השלכות של האור?
Projection in what sense? Like in a physical sense? What do you mean it is said? By whom?
This is from the International Mac Academy in Russian. Like
Okay.
it's a first lesson of Pticha. I just translated into English. That
okay.
what we are is a projection onto the surrounding light. Thanks.
No, those guys know what they're doing, so that's okay. All right, so as in I guess you can think about it like, so the only thing that initially existed is the creator, is the light, which is the desire to bestow. It emanated from his essence, atzmuto, which is unattainable, but we Kabbalists have told us that what comes out of his essence is simply the desire to bestow. And then from that desire to bestow, it naturally progresses that the desire to bestow wants to create something to receive. The word projection is a little problematic.
I just translate projection as trying to take something from inside and like.
That's a good, yeah, I see what you're saying.
This
That's
is projection. So for this, I wouldn't use projection, but you can say, it's a tricky thing, because you can say that the will to receive in Bchina Aleph was created copy-paste from the light, meaning you have light, you need something that will perceive it, so you just like imprint. Okay, imprint is a better word, because Kabbalists talk about a lot about imprinting, that each layer of reality is imprinted from the other layer, meaning the same information just reveals itself on a different sensation of the will to receive, different aviyut, what we call. So it's different resolution. But so all layers of reality, there are no layers of reality. There is one reality, but you divided two layers according to your internal sensation, okay? So saying that we are projections of the light is to say that the light was, it's like talking from the point of the light. I personally don't like it, because what is the light? What is the creator? The creator is what we, as creatures, attain in the highest level as something that created us. You see what I'm trying to say? So if we rise to the highest point of creation, we'll reveal something that was that precedes us, that created us, that is above us. I don't know how you want to imagine that, and we'll call that creator. And above that, we cannot call anything by name. Okay.
I think
go for it.
All right. So if we think about projection like in a geometric sense, you know, like if you take a cube, a three-dimensional object, and you sorry about this. Oh, this is terrible. All right. And you suppose that it's in 3D, and you project it onto a 2D plane, you get a square. All right. So so if you think about the same way with, like, you know, if you just kind of project it down. So if you think about the light, you can think about maybe on this plane, I don't know if this is helping anybody, but if we think of this plane as the material, kind of the desire to receive, or the kli, oops, this thing, the kli itself, the will to receive, then we don't really know what the light is up here. It's some abstract thing in a higher dimension. We have no idea what it is. We have no attainment of it. But what we do feel is how it feels inside the desire. So it's like the light projects itself onto sort of a lower level, which is the will to receive. And the will to receive, in this super primitive example, perceives this cube as kind of a square. This is the perception of the desire. This is how the desire kind of perceives the light. If we wanted to kind of mash
Yeah.
into this example of projection.
Anyway, it's better to bring a complete excerpt or something that like
that's
a complete
definitely
concept,
preferable.
and then it's easier to understand the context.
So let's move on to another question.
Do you have questions? Questions? Nothing happens. Let's try again. Questions?
What's the difference between whole and complete?
Between whole and complete? Okay, this is a good question. Okay, I'm not talking about English words, okay? Now I'm just trying to talk about, I'll talk about Kabbalistic, as Kabbalistic concepts, okay? So a whole in Hebrew is klal, usually.
I think she means shlemut.
No, complete is shalem. Complete is shalem, whole is klal, usually. Whole is something that includes. That's what I want to refer to. Like,
okay, you do yours.
That's what I said, because in English you can say that whole is like complete, and it's basically the same, okay? I want to refer to it in a different kind of sense. So whole in Hebrew, if you refer to klal, it means something that incorporates, on one hand, incorporates many objects. On the other hand, it's something completely different. So this is very, very similar to what we see as emergent phenomena in nature. So you have you have different ants, and together in the interaction between them, they have a nest of ants. A nest of ants is something, a colony of ants is a different object. It's something that has something more than the specific ants, okay? It has new properties that not necessarily each ant has them, okay? So when you say in Hebrew, klal, it usually refers to with the creator. So you have different, like the ants, you have like, for example, people that interact between them, Kabbalists, and then you have the klal, which is together with the creator. You reveal something higher, okay? This is klal. When you say complete, as in shalem, means that it doesn't have a flaw, okay? It means that it doesn't have a flaw. It's flawless. It corrected all of the absence, all of the desires, and now it's complete. It realized itself to the ultimate state. Okay, I hope that's more.
So I interpreted it a little bit differently. Whole, as in whole in Hebrew, there's a word shalem that Iran just interpreted as complete, and this is entirely subjective, right? And shalem is it means whole, but also perfect. Perfect, as in without flaw, and so on. And you have complete, and complete. At least in the sense of like item 10, where it says, first it comes into its designated kli called guf, and this is considered that the kli has completed its desirable form. That means that the kli is complete, the vessel is complete. Complete means that it reached the end of its development, but it's not yet whole. And whole is the pure corrected vessel, whereas complete means that there's nothing more to add to it. Now it has everything that it needs. Now it's just going through the process of purification. But these are both, you can look at it both ways. They're both entirely valid.
I don't agree with that interpretation, but it's okay, because I think that also here...
Because the word rule is klal, not whole. Whole is not rule. Whole is not klal.
Klal in Hebrew, klal is both, if you say it's a rule and it's a kolel, meaning with the kolel, at least in Kabbalah. Maybe I'll try to refer to it differently.
Hold on, we actually are out of time for today, so we don't have to.
Okay, we're out of time, sorry.
Delve into this as fun as this is.
No, I'll do it anyway. So we'll go over time. So yeah, this is important stuff. So if you relate to the reality as different layers, like layers of resolution, or as we said, like layers of the will to receive. So if you're talking about complete, it's something that realized itself in that specific level, okay? If you talk about a certain resolution, like he says here. So you have, in a certain degree, you have the optimal state for that degree, okay? If you're talking about whole, it's something that comes from another dimension. It comes from a higher level. Like, as we said, the different particles are connected. Then you have something that is higher. That's why it's also, like Dan said, it's also the rule. It's like the law. Because what you have in a higher level is the rules of the lower level. But, okay, having said that, maybe I regret saying that, doesn't matter. Let's drop it.
Next week, do you have any announcements?
Yeah, we have something like that. Let me find it.
They're probably similar to last week's announcements. They're always the same announcements.
No, but somebody wrote it and sent it, so we'll read it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, dear friends, a reminder that we have a Pticha lesson to. No, this is not.
Yeah, they're not really.
This is announcements for us. It's not for the students.
Yeah.
So we didn't get announcement for the students.
Right.
Okay, so we'll just copy paste from last time. So probably on Thursday you have a lesson with Mike Kellogg. Probably on Sunday.
Thursday night graduate class with Dave and Jim.
Dave and Jim. Okay,
Sunday night meeting with friends and young group.
So you see things
As you know,
change.
but you guys know all this already.
Yeah, and next time we're here also, and we really appreciate the fact that you're sticking on. You know, it's like it's been like what, 3 lessons? Yeah.
Yeah. It's only gonna get more interesting and better.
Yeah, and still we have almost everybody here. Good.
We made it all the way to item 10, but I'm sure we'll do a review next time. Go back.
We have
items.
a hardcore. How do you say machzor? Like
Semester.
not
Class.
semester. You know that class? Okay.
Class.
I don't know that we have like a hardcore wave. You know, like we have a wave.
Yeah. So we take like 3 steps, 4 steps back, 5 steps forward, something like that. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week.